Welcome to the inaugural episode of Cubfidential, where the greatest coverage from Wrigley comes after dark. I am your producer, Jay Nelson, producer of the Cubby Hole, and I was, it's crazy because I pride myself on being a night owl, but I do have 4 others down here that are hooting in the trees with me. So let's go ahead and bring on the host of Cubfidential, Mr. JB Ellis.
What's going on, Cub fans? So, we all know Wrigley Field history. It's one of the greatest teams in baseball. We got some of the best coverage coming out tonight. We got Jordan Long, Jen. We got the pundit here. We got Jay Nelson producing. It's going to be exciting. Let's start off first right away with Jordan. Let's talk about the Cubs' newest sensation, Seiya Suzuki, who they brought in from Japan. Jordan, what can you tell us about this phenom?
He's been amazing, actually, since he's been in Chicago. You look at it, he played 10 years in Japan, actually had a pretty good batting average over there. He hit .310, so, it's already Major League Baseball stuff. You look at that. And he had 193 home runs, 21 triples, 210 doubles. But if you look at Japan as a whole, I would actually classify it as close to AAA. You're looking at Major League pitching, basically. But then you look at it, he also was a 5-time All-Star over there. 5 times he won their Gold Glove. And the Cubs said, you know what? Let's go out and get him. A 5-year deal worth $85 million. And honestly, all he's done is hit the baseball. Unfortunately, he had a 9-game hitting streak end tonight against the Tampa Bay Rays, but currently he's hitting .414. That's on pace to be one of the better Cubs hitting seasons in a long while. And 4 home runs and 11 RBIs, 2 doubles, and yet he hasn't hit a triple. But you're still hitting into the gap. You're getting timely hits. There's not much more you can say about this guy. I think it was a smart signing by the Cubs. And you're looking at right field too. He's got the glove there. Played 9 games so far. Actually, 10 games if you include tonight, but hasn't made an error. So I thought this was a smart signing by the Chicago Cubs for sure. He's been unbelievably amazing, and who knows where he's headed. He's a rookie, but the fact of the matter is he's really not a rookie since, Japan, like I said, is like AAA.
So question for you. So usually we've seen a lot of Japanese players come over, and they tend to land on the coast. They tend to go to the Angels, Dodgers, Yankees, as we saw with Matsui. How did the Cubs fit into the fray and go out there against Suzuki? What was their selling point?
Probably just because they've had Japanese players that have played for them before. You look at Fukudomi in the early 2010s. He's done pretty well. There is a pretty high Japanese population there. So, I think they just sold them on the city that you're going to be playing for a franchise that is, one of the oldest in baseball. We're always going to sell out. There are people that are going to be watching you. And of course, with that, the coverage from Japan is going to be on you. So I think that if you combine all that with the media attention too, he probably also was said that you're going to be on national broadcast. So what more do you want?
Now, all the talk is about his offense. how old is he at this point?
He's 27.
Okay, so he's still in his prime of his career. What's the upside for him? Because I've heard rumors that in Japan he actually had better offensive stats than Matsui.
I think he could be better than Matsui. I think this is a guy who, if the Cubs keep him for, past the next 5 years, he could be a gold glove right-handed or right fielder that could actually lead the Cubs back to the playoffs. Could it be a World Series? Who knows? Because you obviously need pitching and you need defense. But I think definitely since he was a gold glover in Japan, he's going to do that here in the United States. And plus, you have his hitting, and we've talked about his hitting, but honestly, we do need a right fielder for years to come. We need someone for that corner outfield position.
Now, how has he been able to assimilate to the new team? I mean, obviously his numbers are red hot, to start the season. As you said, he was hitting 414. This was the first game without a hit. But how has he been able to, assimilate to the team with his teammates to go out there and show that he's ready to perform on a major league level?
He's been a good guy in the clubhouse. I've seen that in terms of him being ready, the teammates love him. He's actually brought gifts from Japan, food for them to try. So that's definitely helped. You get free food from him from Japan to say, here, try some of these goodies. Plus, I know there's a language barrier. He has a translator, but the guys love him and they love playing with him.
I mean, you were a little tough on him. You're talking about his hitting streak ending tonight. He did have 3 walks and only 1 official at bat. So, I mean, it is tough when you have a hitting streak and that happens. But, that's still a pretty impressive game when you can, walk 3 times.
You definitely like the on-base percentage because, he's a threat to steal bases. You want that guy on first. You want to, tell the pitchers, hey, there's a guy on first. Move him around. So I definitely think that, yeah, you're right. He definitely didn't have a hit, but he still got 3 walks. He was still, contributing to the offense. And he's not really a free swinger, which is nice. We've seen guys, especially like Javi Baez. I know he's not on the Cubs right now. He's in Detroit, but he was a free swinger and it bugged me. He's more patient at the plate. He'll just wait for his pitch and swing at it. Of course, tonight he didn't get that chance.
How important is it when you're hitting in the top of the lineup to take some pitches so you could, get your power guys up to see what the pitcher's throwing? How important is that for the Cubs lineup?
I think it's very important. You want the top of the lineup to actually do something, even if it isn't a base hit, if it's a walk, that creates pressure on the opposing pitchers to do something. Plus, those guys can say, hey, this is what I'm seeing. This is the pitch he wants to pitch. Look for it. So I definitely think it's very important to get the top of the lineup out there, puts a little bit more pressure on the opponent starting pitching. And plus, we can get leads that way too.
So looking at, all the great traits that you have in this right fielder, Suzuki, who's obviously mature, what's the one thing you're most excited about seeing this season as he plays, right field in the friendly compound?
Honestly, I'm looking forward to him handling the corner at right field. We haven't had a right fielder for a long time that can throw a guy out from, from the right field into the base paths. He hasn't done it yet. I know he has that kind of arm, especially since he won a couple of gold gloves in Japan. I'm excited to see that. And of course, we know what he can do offensively, but definitely his glove out there in right field.
Now, when you're looking at Suzuki, who do you see his game compared to?
I would have to say I would say Mike Trout. He wanted to be like Mike Trout. He has that kind of power. He isn't there yet, but I think he's a guy that wants to be compared to Mike Trout. He even honors him by wearing number 27 to honor Mike Trout. So I'm going to have to say he probably gets his game from Mike Trout. He reminds me of him for sure.
That's pretty big, a pretty lofty expectation, especially his first year coming to the majors. So he's off to a great start. I see a lot of positive in his game. I look forward to see what he can do throughout a full season. Hopefully, he can stay healthy, which in baseball, the long season, you're always trying to stay healthy. I think there's a lot that could be said by that. Now let's talk about the last series. So you're going to be covering the series with the Rockies. So the Cubs had some trouble going to Colorado.
I,
You know,
Everyone does. I mean, you're playing at altitude. That ball, I mean, they have the humidor, but does that really make a difference? I really don't think so. Again, you're out of altitude, that ball's going to travel further. We saw that a lot of these games, they were ahead by a lot or they were behind by a lot and cut the gap.
yeah. So I mean, looking at that, you know, they split the series. They went 2-2 against a Rockies team that's not expected to do much. What was the biggest drawback at from what you saw this weekend? Was it pitching? Was it timely hitting?
I would have to say it's a mixture of timely hitting and pitching. I mean, there were games that we were ahead. Let's go to Friday night. We were ahead 3-0 and going into the fourth and gave up 5 runs. You can't do that. Yes, we had the offense, but then the pitching wasn't there. But yet in the later innings, we didn't have the pitching. But then if you look at Saturday, the wheels just came off for us. We were up 8-1 after 5 and gave up. Basically, we tried to come back with 4 runs in the 7th, cut it to 8-5. And then, of course, on a Sunday, which actually split the series, it was the final was 6-4 for us. But yet the Rockies had chances in that game to actually win it with the bases loaded. They just couldn't get the timely hit. So if you look at it, it was both a struggle on offense in the later innings and definitely a struggle with the pitching in the bullpen in some of those games.
So, I mean, with looking at the games and, you know, how they played out over the weekend, being in Coors Field with the altitude, as you mentioned, you know, they were pretty low scoring games. You know, so when you're playing in that type of altitude, you know, as someone who bets baseball, the over-unders are usually 11, 12 runs. I think only one of the games would have went over. So, I mean, you still attribute it to the pitching?
Well, it's both. I mean, you still have to have the pitching at Coors Field. I mean, that is a hitter's ballpark. If you leave the ball in the zone, especially, I think one of those games, CJ Cron for the Rockies hit 2 home runs. So you still got to be able to pitch. But then again, like you're saying, your offense has to be there. And unfortunately, we didn't have our offense. So I'm going to attribute it to maybe it's the fact that the altitude did affect the ball because it wasn't going as far as it would at Wrigley Field when the wind's blowing out.
And I mean, speaking of former Cubs, you know, big signing this offseason, Chris Bryant, you know, playing third base for the Rockies. How does he fit into their future? What are you hearing about that?
I think honestly, with the Colorado Rockies, they have Charlie Blackmon, they have Chris Bryant. They know they have an aging Charlie Blackmon. So I'm thinking they're trying to find a face to the franchise, and that's going to be Chris Bryant. That's at least what they hope for the next 7 years. Will he have success? Of course, he'll have success hitting home runs, doubles, triples at Coors Field. But will that translate to wins? I was really surprised he picked the Colorado Rockies because let's face it, the Rockies are rebuilding. I don't see them going to the playoffs in the next, 2 to 3 years.
Now, I mean, after tonight's game, looking in the standings, the Cubs are tied, or they were tied for first with the Cardinals before tonight. You know, having played 2 more games, and the whole division except for the Reds is pretty much within a game of first place. What do you take out of I would say the mediocre start for the Cubs right now, being 6-5?
I think honestly it's better than what I had expected because I thought honestly we wouldn't contend for anything just because if you look at who we lost and who we brought in, we didn't bring in a lot of people. We still have Jason Hayward in the outfield, and we also have Wilson Contreras. After that, it's almost like a triple A team. So the fact that we are kind of near first place is a surprise because I thought we'd be, 3-4 games below 500. But then again, it's still early. There's still a lot of time to be decided. Hopefully we can stay with the St. Louis Cardinals and the Milwaukee Brewers, but they are the teams to beat.
Right. So, I mean, saying that and looking, at the opening homestand when they played the Brewers, they seemed to do well. They beat the Brewers 2 out of 3 games. The one game they lost was a 1-run game, 5-4. that they were in the whole game. But, looking at the season so far, what surprised me is the Cubs seem to be having trouble closing out games and getting that timely hit. Now, as you said, they have a lot of young guys. Nico Horner's been playing a lot. You have guys that are coming off awful years. Ian Happ, has so much more talent that he played with last year. How do you mix the team that they have and get Ian Happ right, get, Jason Hayward hitting again, and then on top of that, get the pitching where it needs to be?
I think a lot of it right now is we're still, it's a young season and we're still getting used there. A lot of these young players are getting used to the major league playing in the major leagues, and Ian Happ is starting to, hit a little bit, and Horner's still a young guy, and you have Wilson Contreras and you've got Jason Hayward. I just think it's so early right now. They're just trying to gel. I'm not hitting the panic button yet. I think if this was May or June and these guys were still not producing, then I'd be a little, panicked by it. But right now, not at all. Just because, again, we're just in a young season. They're going to end up gelling. I think definitely the concern is the bullpen, though. That is what's going to cost you games this season. And honestly, David Ross needs to do a better job of, getting these guys out of the game when they just don't have it. I've seen it. We saw it in actually the first game of the year with Kyle Hendricks. Hendricks was pitching okay, and then all of a sudden you go to the bullpen and they just couldn't hold the lead. So I think if David Ross sees that a pitcher doesn't have it, he needs to take them out.
Okay. Now, when you look at where the team was last year, and they had, basically a huge fire sale, they got rid of a big part of the core of their team that brought them the World Series. The only guy that was left basically out of their superstars was Contreras. What kind of pressure does he feel gelling with these young guys and new teammates to try and have a successful season?
I definitely think there's a lot of pressure with him and Jason Hayward. More Contreras, he has to be the leader of this team. He knows if he doesn't produce, and let's say the Cubs are, 5-6 games out of first place, he could be on his way out. I hate to say that, but it just seems like he knows he needs to be the leader. He needs to be more vocal. I know he does an amazing job with the pitchers, but he needs to be a little more vocal in the dugout to tell these guys, this is what I'm seeing. This is what you need to do. If you're going to steal, this is how you do it. Or even if he sees what they're doing on the field isn't great enough, especially defensively, he needs to talk to them about them because he is going to be the vocal leader.
So, coming up this weekend, there's a huge 4-game homestand against the Pirates. And, this is where divisions are won and lost when you're playing teams that are in your division that you should be better than. But the Pirates have a really good young team. They signed Brian Hayes to a long extension. They have a lot of nice, young, good hitters. The Cubs went to Pittsburgh last week. They did okay. They won 2 out of 3, but all close games. How do the Cubs separate themselves from teams they should be better than?
You just have to have the hitting and the pitching. I know it's just as simple as that, but that's what you have to have. If the pitching isn't there, if we see Kyle Hendricks or Steele or even Marcus Stroman throwing a ball right up in the zone, that's going to be cheap home runs. And then you look on the the offensive side. If there's a pitch that's right in the zone, you got to crush it. Make them pay for throwing it that high, or even have a double or even a triple would work, and be patient at the plate. Get walks, get pressure on these guys. If you don't, you have to have the timely hits, and if you don't, this could be a long year. So yes, divisional games are really important, but I'm going to look. I know we're still early in the season, but I'm looking at June and July as the panic button if we don't start winning division games, because that's where we lost it last year, was June and July.
So your biggest bright spot 2 weeks into the season right now, what are you seeing that makes you excited to follow this team this year?
Well, besides Suzuki, it's our offense. We're scoring runs. I know we had the one game in Pittsburgh that was 2-1, but other than that, we're hitting the ball, we're driving the ball. So especially at Wrigley when the wind's blowing and you can hit the cheap home runs. That's what you should be excited for. I understand the bullpen isn't right, but if we have, a 6 or a 5 run lead, the bullpen's going to do its job.
So taking out the bullpen, because that's easy to pick on. In Major League Baseball, 25 out of, the teams don't have great bullpens. So take that out of the equation. What's your area you're most concerned about with this team going forward to make a run this year, at least at the wild card?
I would have to say the middle of the lineup after Wilson Contreras and Jason Hayward and Suzuki, where the hit's going to come from. You need the middle of the lineup or even the bottom of the lineup to produce.
Are you not excited about Nico Horner?
He had a nice home run, but I mean,
leave my Nico alone. I like Nico Horner.
I like his name.
Wow, that's just mean. I think he's going to be a good young player. I think last year they didn't give him much of an opportunity. From watching him, I think he has the skills needed to play Major League Baseball. He's not going to be a top prospect. He's not going to be the guy that's going to go out there and win you extra games every year. But he's going to be a solid contributor. I think he's the type of guy you want on the team. But he's not going to be your Contreras, your Suzuki, But you can't have a team full of that unless you have a $200 million payroll like the Dodgers.
Or the Yankees or the Red Sox.
No, the Yankees have their own problems. As a Yankee fan, I'll be the first to tell you. We have Garrett Cole, $40 million. We got lots of problems. So when we talk next week, where is this team going to be?
I would like to say that maybe a game or two above 500, but that all depends on where pitching and hitting is.
So they're 6-4, 6-5 right now after tonight's loss. They're going to play. Let's see. They play tomorrow. I think they have 6 games in the next 7 days. So you're saying that they're going to go 3-3, 4-2, possibly.
That would be good for me. You just want to stay in pace for the at least in the National League Central. So yeah, I would say 3-3 or 4-2 would be perfect for me, especially in this early going. You don't want to get too hot now. So I would like to be greedy and say 5-1 and 6-0, but I just can't say that.
Well, it's baseball. Even the best team's going to lose 40 games. So to do that, it's almost impossible. But okay, so where can people find you, Jordan?
You can follow me at Sports Scoop 1. You can watch the NBA carousel that I do the Phoenix Suns and or the Denver Nuggets, and read my blog that I write Mondays through Thursdays with podcasts on Fridays at sports-scoop.com.
Jordan, it was a pleasure. I look forward to covering the Cubs with you this year. Definitely got to get out to Wrigley one day, see a game. Sit in the bleachers, have some beers, enjoy some sunshine, maybe fly the W. They sing that song. What is that song?
Go Cubs, go.
There you go. But we'll talk to you later on, Jordan. It was a pleasure.
Thank you, JB.
Have a good one. So next up, we have Jen coming in.
Hi.
How's it going tonight, Jen?
Good. How about you, JB?
Doing good. You did double duty tonight.
I did.
So before we start, tell everyone about your show you did this evening.
So Megan Price and the Queen of Hoops, also AKA the Queen of Podcast for Sideline Sports. That's my nickname I gave her tonight. And Miss Carrie Johnson, Chiefs Check, have started a podcast. We are the only all-female podcast on Sideline Sports. 3 chicks in a pod. It's half hour. We give our own insight onto different topics in sports, and we will be covering like teams as well. But tonight we covered playing to win versus playing not to lose, which is important in sports and in life. So, and it's really exciting. This has kind of been a dream of mine to have my own podcast for a while. So that to have it with my 2 girlfriends that are really into sports with me, it's awesome. I love it.
Well, you guys did a great job. I had a chance to watch it. I was actually the first guest ever on the show, so that's actually an honor as well.
Thank you for
So,
being our first guest ever, JB. We appreciate it and you very
thank you.
much.
Thank you. So let's talk about the Rays Cub series.
Yes.
So tonight, tough game, 1-run loss.
Mhm.
What went wrong tonight?
I don't know if they're just tired because they're coming off of the Rockies games, and I know this is what baseball players are supposedly built for, but it gets waning, especially at the beginning of the season. And we're only 10 games in, right? So I think that had a lot to do with it. Plus, we kind of last night, it was kind of foreshadowing last night because the writing was on the wall. They gave it up a little bit in the fourth inning. We had a solid lead, and then we kind of gave it up a little bit last night. So I think there's maybe a little tiredness, maybe some cockiness. Maybe they just need to gel a little bit. There wasn't one thing that I saw that anyone did wrong, except that the standout players, the top performers tonight, were all Ray players. You've got Franco, you've got Waz, Kedridge. They all did a great job. And none of our guys really stepped up to the plate, so to speak, figuratively and literally.
So, I mean, it's a tough night when your starting pitcher only goes 2 1/3 innings, gives up 4 runs, and gets pulled from the game. And one of the hardest things to do is have your pitchers pitch another 6 1/3 innings in the major leagues when you have a shaky bullpen to begin with, and they only gave up 2 more runs in the game. Was that a positive for the bullpen, or does that hurt them going forward for tomorrow's game, having to spend 6 innings using the pen in one night?
I think it's half and half because it gives him time to really show what he's made of. And I hate to be like that or say that, but that you went into the sport, you know what it's about. You know what I mean? So, and that's one of the things because the Cubs have started out great. Like everyone in the MLB, like all of us, we thought when we got rid of everyone last year, did you really think we'd have a good season this year? I kind of didn't.
Not at all. Not at all.
So I'm kind of gun shy on saying we're going to have a great season. We've started out great, which is awesome. But we have a couple of things that can bite us at the end of the day. And part of that is the aging bullpen. And, part of it is pitching. So we really have to focus on those 2 areas a lot and make adjustments as needed. Now, I don't know if I answered your question or if I talked around it. I'm sorry.
You kind of did.
Okay. Sorry.
No worries. So, a night like tonight, Suzuki, who is the focal point right now of the offense with Contreras, 4 plate appearances, 3 walks. Mm-hmm. How do you look at a night like that? Is that a positive?
I think that's a positive. I mean, he's doing great. I mean, he's just going out there. He literally can't get drawn into the drama and the BS that happens in all locker rooms. Literally, he can't get drawn into it. So that's a blessing for him. So those outside things, that doesn't mean other things, but I think it's a good thing for him.
Now, looking at some early season stats, I mean, Ian Happ, who was awful last year, so far through 11 games is hitting .333. How important is that for the Cubs offense for him to step up and start?
Oh, that's very important because you're watching somebody who, if he keeps having this season, should honestly get a couple of awards. But that's just my humble opinion.
Now, one of the biggest surprises looking at the team from last year, when they got rid of Rizzo, this guy by the name of Frank Schwindel. What a great name, by the way. Schwindel.
I know. I love it. I know. Schwindel. It's fun to say. And you think of Schwinn bikes and you think of Dell laptops. I love it.
He's been a fan favorite, and replacing a guy like Anthony Rizzo, not an easy job.
No. Not easy at all.
What's your overall impression of what he's done so far in the early year?
I really like what he's done. I really like how he's again, pardon the pun, but stepped up to the plate. How he has really like embraced the Cubs, the history, the culture, and how he's embraced the fans and how the fans have embraced him back. And that all leads in. I mean, we were talking about this earlier. You feel the vibes, and the vibes can energize the players, and it doesn't matter what sport or anything like that. And I think that really has helped. And the fact that he's been so positive and people have really like opened up their arms, and he's opened their arms up to them too. So, and I'm sorry, I'm really sorry. I feel like I'm talking in circles. I feel like I'm talking in circles. So sorry.
Oh, you're doing fine. No worries. So, Patrick Wisdom, another guy that came up last year, had a really amazing hot streak where he was just on fire. He couldn't touch a ball without it going out of the yard. Cooled off at the end of the year. Right now, started off hitting about 250. What does he need to do to be successful this year?
He needs to think about where he was, not where he was last year. He doesn't need to compare that, but he needs to get back into that mindset.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Like, I don't think you should ever compare yourself to where you were, but you need to get back into that same winning mindset. And you need to play to win.
Okay, I get you on that. So to start the year, Ortega was hitting leadoff and DHing. Do you think that's the best use for him, the way the outfield was set up, or do you think Ortega should be playing in the field rather than DHing?
Field.
Okay, so
he's more comfortable in the field. To me.
That's the one thing that's tough, though. I mean, you have with Suzuki, you have Happ, Hayward, Suzuki, and Ortega. So how do you fit all four of them against them at bats? I mean, that's the one great thing now with the DH. How do you think? Do you think it's benefited the Cubs now having the DH, or do you think that they'd be better off without the DH, maybe having one of the guys on the bench?
That's a good question. Probably on the bench, to be perfectly honest. I haven't given that much thought, to be honest with you. I don't know why. I just haven't.
That's okay. Listen, we all have opinions. Nothing wrong with that.
Right.
But it's tough. Even Wisdom, it's 5 guys they have that can play the outfield, try to find at bats for them. I almost think that the DH does work a little bit better for them, that it gives them the opportunity to get more guys in the game and more at bats from them. Even though I'm not a fan of the DH, I just think the way that their offense is set, because all these guys can hit timely, and they all go through different hot streaks. It's just a matter of getting enough of them on a hot streak at the same time to do what they need to do.
Right. And they do need to, and it's even if they're not all on the same hot streak at the same time, we need a couple of them on the hot streak at the same time. If we need to rotate that hot streak, that's fine. But I don't like going in with a 50-50 win for, against the Rays. I mean, it's, still part of the NFC South in my world. But
So tomorrow we got the last game of the series.
Yes.
We got Stroman on the mound, who, not really done much so far this year. He started out great and then went to Colorado, which is a tough place to pitch. Saw his ERA balloon up to 6 where it is now. Are you concerned with Stroman, or do you think it was just a bad start? No big deal.
I think there's room for improvement. I think it could have been a bad start. Denver, if you're not used to Denver, I lived in New Mexico for a while. I think you know this. Altitude sickness is a real thing. It happens to the most physically fit people. It happens to the most unphysically fit people, everybody. So maybe he had a little bit of that going on. It's hard. The air is thinner. It's a totally different vibe than what you're going to get in Wrigley Field, what you're going to get in Tampa Bay, wherever else. So maybe it was just a bad start, but I'll say there was some room for improvement. I saw some room for improvement.
All right, last
Mm-hmm.
question before we go to the pundit.
Yes.
Wrigley Field, day games or night games? What are better?
That's tough. Oh, day games.
I agree. I've never been to a night game at Wrigley Field.
I'm just talking about what I've watched on TV. I've never been to a game at Wrigley Field. I know.
No.
I need to go to Chicago really bad.
Well, you need to. Great place to see a game. Probably top 3 fields right now by far. And it's tough. As much as I hate the Red Sox, it's between Fenway and Wrigley as number 1 and number 2. And Dodger Stadium comes in number 3 because of the ambiance of being Dodger Stadium. But, Wrigley and Fenway both are really special.
Yes.
Great places to see a game. Well, Jed, I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, JB.
Great night for you. Congratulations on the show.
Thank you. And great night for you, too.
Thank you. So tell everyone where they can find you.
Oh, you can find me on the NBA Carousel on Monday nights. You can find me on 3 Chicks in a Pod on Tuesday nights and here at Cubfidential, as well as the Pundit on Wednesday nights. Thursday nights during the football season, we have the NFL Carousel, and occasionally I will be on the Step Off. And then on and I'm sorry, the Pundit is on Thursday nights, not Wednesday nights. Sorry about that. Sorry, Jacob. And then I'll be on the Gauntlet this Saturday night. So,
well, Jen, I appreciate you taking the time. It was a pleasure, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
All right, next we have Mr. Chicago himself, Pundit.
Love your hat there, JB. You going for the Hulkamania vibe with your name all over the place?
Listen, if I can't remember my name, I'm just going to look at my hat, my Sideline Sports sweat jacket. As I get older, I heard people get forgetful. I put it on my clothes now.
Hey, what the hell, right? How's it going this evening?
Going well. Not as good for the Cubs tonight. What happened?
Here's the thing about it. I'm going to tell you this. David Ross, everybody talks about Rossi. I like him as a person. I loved him as a player. There's no World Series without him because you got to remember he made a 6-3 with that home run. With that home run, Rajay Davis, it's over. So I mean, his home run wins the World Series. So there's that. But he needed to go the Rachel Balkovich level, and he needed to go to the minor leagues first. And for Balkovic, and for anybody that doesn't know, she's the first woman to manage a professional baseball team. The Tampa Tarpons, she's in low A. So I'm just saying, Balkovic right now, Balkovic, either way, he needed to go that route. He's living off of Joe Madden, the mindset of Joe Madden. That's what he's living off of right now. And it's a big issue when Joe Madden was clever. This guy's just thinking, well, what would he do? What would Joe do? What would WWJD, what would Joe do? That's what he's thinking right now, and he's not as clever. And he doesn't have his own style. He doesn't have his own anything. And to me, this could easily be his last year if he struggles.
Interesting. So let's get into pitching because, this is an important topic, and it's what's going to make or break the season when we talk about our Cubs here. So let's start with the professor to start, Kyle Hendricks. What's going on with him? Opening day, he looked amazing on opening day.
Yeah.
Got pulled, which I understand, pitch count, opening day, short spring training.
Right.
I'm not a fan of it, but I get it. So what was after that, back-to-back starts that were not impressive. Is there anything going on with him?
Well, I can say these 3. Amazing opening day, horrible second, and third was fine. He struggled in the last couple of innings. But here's the thing that gets me with Professor. And he's, as everybody knows when they see my social media, he's my favorite pitcher. Absolutely my favorite pitcher, one of the tops. And one of the issues I've got right now, he's striking out too many. And I'll explain. It's great to have strikeouts. Don't get that wrong. I mean, it's the Sports Center's favorite deal outside of the home run. But he had 11.2 strikeouts per 9 innings, like he's got right now, means you're pitching too darn many pitches. See, with all that, he also has nine walks. See, he's supposed to be the guy that doesn't walk people. That's what his thing was. You get the guy out on the second or third pitch. Okay, 5 strikeouts, whatever. I mean, you could be able to get that. But he was the guy that once had 81 pitch. He had an 81 pitch complete game against the Cardinals. He had that, and yet we're seeing this right now. It's like, I don't need to see the strikeouts out of him. I don't need to see. He's throwing too many pitches, and they will pull you too early these days.
Now let's get off of Hendricks, who for me he's a little too inconsistent to be your ace. You guys brought in Marcus Stroman this year. Big pickup, came in from New York.
Yeah.
Big jovial guy, a New York native.
Yeah.
Left New York to go to Chicago. Had a great Twitter post when he did. Is excited to be part of the Cub community. Couple of games in, got a pretty rough ERA. Hasn't done much. Are you worried about Stroman? What's your thoughts on him?
I don't worry about anybody. Not this early. Never do. And I'm not going to, we're going to talk about Drew Smiley and those, and he's got a 0.00. That won't last. I'm not worried. It's like with Suzuki. We're just talking about pitching, but not with Suzuki. I'm not expecting to hit 414 all year, 419 all year. Not expecting that. I don't live off SportsCenter, and I don't live off hot takes. I don't live off of the what's the now. It's like you're going to have hot streaks. You're going to struggle. You're going to have those situations. So, no, I'm not worried about him. I right now, what the main thing about it is I like the 1-2. I wish it was a 1-2 punch with Hendricks and Stroman. I like the placement and the power. It's just I just want Stroman to start being Stroman and Hendricks to start being Hendricks. It's like they're kind of switching positions right now in complete truth.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. So you're confident that Stroman and Hendricks will right themselves? Because, I mean, for this team to do well, they're going to need good starting pitching. The bullpen is not the strength of this team. So you're going to need innings out of the starters.
Yeah. It's not that you're confident. This is the truth. It's not that you're confident in what all that is. Because I don't play that kind of a thing. It's like I watch. It's like the thing was Hendricks started out the struggle. He had an amazing June and July. Then he struggled again. He was still 14-7 last year. He had that. So you got to watch. It's like, and you talk about Ian Happ. Ian Happ had a horrendous year, and people would want to pull wisdom. People at the early part of this year were thinking if they would have been any kind of clever whatsoever, would have been like, he's like a tooth, pull them. But they aren't that clever. So they aren't that clever. So, but the thing is, now he's hitting again. You can't go off of whatever the struggles and whatever hot streaks there. He gets so many games. But my main thing is the fact that here's the deal. For as much as there's a bit of mediocrity, they haven't lost a series yet. And my question I've got for the Cubs, how long before, how will they handle that first losing series? That could happen tomorrow. Who knows if they lose? But even then, what about the next one? And how do they handle some of the big powerhouse teams? I want to see that. I don't mind the pitching right now. I think it's decent. I think the bullpen it has like 2 pitchers right now. The rest of them are struggling. But I like the rotation all right. It's doing pretty decent. I mean, 6-5 is better than what I expected, actually.
What were you looking for when the season started? What were you thinking with the first couple of series?
Well, I would have liked to have swept the Brewers. That's one of the big things. I expected to actually lose the series to the Rockies because it's Colorado. They're a pain. But splitting there was good. That's a miracle. Splitting there, especially. But you know what I think? It's the Sunday games. You get a Sunday game and stuff like that. You get the day game. It's like I think they just stink at night. And you brought
Okay.
they stink at night, and I'm talking about in Colorado, and you can get those day games. But bringing up, I want to answer the question. By the way, I've been a fan since '84. I saw them when they had 88 before the rain delay, when they got their first night game. I'm just so used to night games by now. I've been to one Wrigley game before they rebuilt it, so I got to see the original scoreboard and everything. I got it in a day game, so it is a lot of fun. So it's a lot of fun. We'll see what the night game, but it's been over 35 years, almost 35 years of a home game, of a night game. You just got to say it.
Yeah, so for the people that don't know, and one of the quirks of Major League Baseball with the Cubs, all their Friday games are at 1:10 p.m. Chicago time, and the reason being is because the parking in the Wrigleyville area. The community has come together, and the Cubs aren't allowed to play night games on Fridays because of parking, which is interesting to see a Major League ball club, not be able to schedule a game for a time that works for them. Good to see that the community has stood up to that, and it's one of the agreements that the Cubs have with them. I actually read a story at the beginning of the year that I forget what part of the season it is, but the Cubs are coming back from a road trip, and they have a Friday game. They actually had to go to the community and ask to play a night game and get it approved. And it's, I think, in August, if I'm correct.
Right.
And they got it approved, but it's a very rare thing if you see a Friday home game that will be anything but a 1:10 start because of that.
Well, like I said to you, I've been a fan since '84. So I saw the first 4 years. See, in '84, the very first. Now I'm 6 years old in '84, but I had a weird absorption of the sports really early. But the biggest thing about it is because of that, they had 2 home games against San Diego, then 3 road games. Because of all those rules, they didn't have lights until '88. So there's been a lot of weirdness with the lights, and you have Friday games, like you brought up, the Friday 1:10. They've got that. And then they have a lot to deal with Chicago in the first place, with the city. And it's not going to change because you got to realize they used to have free they used to have those free rooftop stands for decades. Free. And then there was fights. Then they finally had the thing, but they basically sacrificed their free rooftops for years upon decades. They've sacrificed this, and they sacrificed more. They rebuilt the park and there's not that scoreboard anymore. They don't want to sacrifice what's basically left, is being able to have you got to remember, by itself, you still get a 1:10 game. It's not just because of the parking and not just everything. They sacrificed everything else that was tradition, and they don't want to sacrifice that.
Now, looking at the Cubs bullpen, so what's been the biggest success so far this season out of the bullpen?
4 saves by David Thompson. 4 saves, looks pretty. Keegan looks amazing, but everybody else is like, ugh. And that's going to be that way. That was the thing I thought from the beginning of this year, that it was going to be tough, is the fact that like here's the thing about, like I brought up earlier about Professor. 14 wins last year. Even struggled in even struggled in like most of like the middle of August into September last year. At the same time, he was in such he had a hot 2 months that they blew 6 of his games, so he could have had 20 even with the struggles. They blew 6 of his games, the bullpen did. So the biggest thing about it is they still don't have a consistent bullpen. He still needs to have about a 6-run. He still needs about a 6-run effort, 6-0, and be out of the game about the 7th. He still needs that to be able to have a chance, because he gave up the lead yesterday, but it was 2-2. It was still 2-1 to 2-2. But remember, he left the game. He left the game against the Milwaukee with a couple of runs, and they blew that one. That's
Jacob. I'm going to cut you off right now.
Sure.
Jordan's been hanging around backstage, walking back and forth. I see him in my camera down there. He's saying he wants to have a confrontation with you. So for you guys that don't know, a confrontation is when we have 2 of our people on, I'm going to drop off the screen. You'll still hear me after I introduce him, but we're going to have a little confrontation. Bring Jordan Long back on.
Love the visuals.
Jordan, so what was it you were saying? I saw your mouth moving as you were walking back and forth. You were saying hitting is more important than pitching for this Cubs team?
I said pitching was more important than hitting.
Oh, that's what it was hard to, you're in the background. I'm paying attention to Jacob right now. So you're saying that the pitching's more important?
It's got to be.
Wow. So you know what? Me and Jacob are going to go off the screen right now. We're going to give you 3 minutes to tell us why.
Okay. Basically, why pitching's more important than hitting. If you don't have the pitching, you're not going to be very successful. That's for every baseball club. You can have all the hitting in the world, but if you don't have the pitching, that's what separates playoff teams and World Series teams to teams that aren't going to make the playoffs. You look at it right now, the team ERA is at 4.22. They're starting pitching a little too high at 5.32, and relievers at 3.14. You need to have the pitching a little bit better for the starting pitching to have any success. You got to strike batters out. You have to induce ground balls, flyouts, you name it. If not, your pitching is going to give up home runs. You're going to have David Ross get rid of the starters, bring in the bullpen. The bullpen is going to struggle, or it's going to be the other way around, as we've already seen that the bullpen has already struggled and the starting pitching has been good. But if you don't have the pitching, where are you going to go? You're not going to be a playoff team. You're not going to do anything. It's very important to have the starting pitching. You can have all the hitters in the world. We can have a Wilson Contreras hit 50 home runs this year and 100 RBIs. You can have Ian Happ drive in 50 RBIs. But if you do not have the pitching, I don't care if you have the offense. That's going to not help you win games. You have to have the bullpen to close games out to win games. It's essential to every baseball team. And I've seen it with my own eyes with the Cubs. If you don't have the pitching, you're not going to go anywhere in the postseason or even win the division. I've had this discussion with other teams. You have to have the pitching. Again, you can have all the hitting in the world, but if your pitching isn't there, that's where you're going to fail. So basically what I'm saying is, unless you have the pitching, you will not do anything in the playoffs, let alone the division. So you have to have your starting pitching of Stroman, Kyle Hendricks do well and give to the bullpen, and for them not to blow games. If you do, then your pitching, I don't care what offense you have, you're not going to do anything this year. So that's why I think that pitching is more important than hitting.
That was Jordan Long calling out the pundit's pundit. You know what? I say we give the pundit 3 minutes to respond. Bring him on.
Jordan, this isn't 1986, even though you weren't born then. Or maybe you were, who knows? This isn't your time. That was my time. That's when the pitching was at its strongest. This isn't the time of Nolan Ryan going after Randy Johnson, going to Roger Clemens. This isn't that time. Not at all, not anymore. It is an absolute hitters, even though with the strikeouts, it's still a hitters league, without question. What do you see on SportsCenter now? What do you see? Home run, home run, home run, home run, home run. It is a hitter's world. Who gets the contracts? The hitters. Watch the playoff games. Look at the World Series last year. How long did it take for somebody to give up a 4-run lead, 3-run lead, 4-run lead? You didn't see that back in those days with the pitchers. You see that all the time right now. Look at the whole idea of what you have to do with Ohtani. Look at Ohtani right now. Look at what he has to do. He is at this point in time, he's struggling as a pitcher. The biggest thing about it is they talk about his 2 home runs the other night, and they talk about what he did last year. Look at Suzuki, their big $85 million deal. Suzuki, he's not a pitcher. He's the hitter. And the thing is, you need – and by the way, remember 2015 and 2016. What made it? Now, yes, we know we know it was Jake Arrieta. Thank you, Jake Arrieta, by the way. We know his pitching was there. But look at all the home runs. Look at Schwarber. Look at all that. Look at what the pitchers did who hit home runs also. It's all hitting in the end. Hitting is necessary. This isn't the 1980s anymore. We got to quit thinking like that.
All right. So we got Jordan with 2 minutes for a rebuttal here. Let's go, Jordan. Get on screen and do your thing.
I will say, yes, you hit it on the head. Yes, you need hitting, but how do you win a World Series? How do you win a postseason game? There are games that are 2-1, 3-2. If you don't have the pitching, I could care less about the offense. Yes, the offense is important, but you need the pitching to close those games out. You don't have it, I don't care who you are. If you score 10, 12 runs a game, like you said, you need offense. I don't care if you can score that much. You still need a bullpen to shut down those games, especially late. If you're up 12-11, you need somebody to induce a ground ball, a double play to win those games. Yes, you can have all the offense in the world, but you're not going to go anywhere without the pitching. Pitching induces ground balls. Yes, that is what makes Cy Young winners, is pitching. Yes, they aren't as high in terms of salary as batters, but you still need pitching. Pitching's the utmost importance. You can be like the Chicago Cubs of 2016 in Game 7, where we locked it down in the 10th inning with Chris Bryant throwing over to Anthony Rizzo. If you didn't have that, Cleveland could have won that series easily. So definitely need pitching. It's more important than batting, because that is how you win ball games, is pitching.
Jacob, you're up. You got 2 minutes, Mr. Pundit. What do you got in return for that?
What won the game in the 10th? What won it? It was, let's see, what was that? What was that, Zobrist with the opposite field single? What was that? Yeah, it was the opposite field single, and then the Montero, who was the unlikely hero in the playoffs. Montero got his hit. And over and over and over, score. It's 8-6. What almost blew it? Before that, it was the 3-run homer by Rajai Davis. He was the one. I mean, remember that whole thing. Remember the whole deal. Rajai Davis, the 3-run homer. Then it became in the 10th inning 8-7. They had to throw Montgomery in the game, and if there wasn't the luck of Chris Bryant slipping before, you got to remember, we were glad that Rizzo was 6'5", otherwise that's going over his head. And mind you, I'm very glad, and that ended the curse. But in the end, the winner was the hitting. The winner was the hitting in that 10th inning. Well, besides the fact that the winner was also Hayward giving a pep talk and saying, "Don't ever quit," among other things, among a few cuss words, obviously. The thing is, the biggest thing is hitting at the top of the 10th got it. The pitching almost blew it. Much as I love my pitching and I am a big Kyle Hendricks fan, that's what it is. The end.
Wow, he dropped the mic on you, Jordan. But guess what? The first confrontation, we're going to have Jay Nelson pick the winner. Come on in, Jay.
All right. So I heard definite solid sides from both of them. Jordan most definitely hit the head on the nail when it says it's the pitching that eventually is going to win the game. And I am a full-fledged fan of the deeper bullpen is going to win the game, especially in the playoffs. However, and we make mention of Game 7 of the 16 World Series. And JB, he once pitched for you guys. Aroldis Chapman, I like the guy, but he gives up home runs at the most inopportune times. I have seen it repeatedly in the playoffs. And so with that being said, Jacob, he pretty much slammed it home too, because it was Rajai Davis's home run, which messed over the Cubs pitching. Of course, Chapman was on the mound. And then on top of that, Zobrist's clutch run in the 10th, clutch RBI, excuse me. And mind you, he won most valuable player of the series. You know, so it was close. The first ever confrontation was close. I'm going to give this slight edge to Jacob on this one. Valiant fight by Jordan Long. But you know what? I think Jordan might get him next time. We'll see.
Wow. So the winner of the first ever confrontation goes to the pundit's pundit. That's all we have for you tonight, folks. This has been Cubfidential. This will be on weekly at 11 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Central. Make sure you're watching for all your Cubs news. Got a big night on Tuesdays. We got Three Chicks in a Pod at 7:30 Eastern. Sideline Sports, which had Scoop Jackson on at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. Of course, Cubfidential on at 11 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Central. Make sure you follow us on Sideline Sports YouTube, on Twitter at Sideline Sports 1. It was a lot of fun. Look forward to seeing you from the friendly confines next week. Big week. Got the Pirates and then the Braves coming up after one more game against Tampa. Have a good night.